and presenting complex information. He has a great knack for winning the trust of interviewees. When he interviews people in Iran or Lebanon, he is doing so in fluent Arabic or Farsi. When he traces the influences on the Yazidis or the Mandeans, he does so with a deep knowledge of Islamic history and Christian doctrine. When he writes about the bombs and attacks in Iraq and Afghanistan, he writes as someone who has worked and lived through the politics and violence of those insurgencies. The network of friends on which he relies to move through dangerous areas or gain access to religious leaders has been developed over years. This, his first book, is the fruit of 2 decades of experience and reflection. Each of these religions has been shaped by a dozen other religions, living, evolving, and vanished. Theology is a subtle and tough discipline, where apparently trivial disagreements prove to have vast and often fatal consequences, frequently provoking sectarian killings. Many of the most basic facts about these faiths are still subjects of fierce debate, some driven by new data, some simply by new politics and fashions in anthropology or world religion. Thousands of books and articles demand to be read. Unpublished manuscripts in archaic languages need to be consulted. Some of the best accounts are a century old but need to be filleted for the prejudices of their authors. Much of this information is, inconveniently, relevant and good. And modernity, conflict, and the West overshadow everything. Many of the religious homelands of these faiths are today in active conflict zones, Iraq, Afghanistan, the edge of Syria, that have been swept up in the fortunes of regimes supported or toppled by the United States, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Russia, and Qatar. Pagan families have experienced occupation, proxy wars, honor killings, kidnappings, and giant truck bombs. The pagans are now clean-shaven men in suits or young professional women. In the last 3 decades, unparalleled numbers have left their rural homes, lost their links to their original landscape and extended family, and begun to marry out and forget their old religion. And perhaps the majority of believers have now fled as refugees to the West. So an honest portrait of a contemporary faith requires a description not only of a 3,000-year-old temple and its ancient priest, but also of a converted cinema in London or a community centre in Detroit, all surrounded by the juddering fantasies and pressures of contemporary Western culture. Russell navigates all of this, creating an almost effortless narrative, so that 20 years of dedication, study, imagination, and care are left very much in the background. It is tempting at times to hope for a more romantic account, more focus on his own emotional responses, a clearer glimpse of his own faith or views on God. There could have been space for Wordsworth's fascination with paganism as another energy or possibility. Great God, I'd rather be a pagan suckled in a creed outworn. So might I, standing on this pleasant lea, have glimpses that would make me less forlorn, have sight of Proteus rising from the sea, or hear old Triton blow his wreathed horn. But Russell resists this, just as he resists the temptation of boasting about his discoveries, or of turning the story of the decline, persecution, and scattering of these religions into a prolonged lament. Instead, he achieves something perhaps ultimately more valuable and more lasting, a careful chronicle. He truthfully and exactly records encounters with these religions in the 21st century. He introduces us in detail to his informants, gives us their context, and hints at their prejudices. He is never afraid to admit ignorance, uncertainty, or contradiction. He hints at a deep problem that the theologies of some of these religions no longer exist, if indeed they ever did. Some worshippers appear to continue their rituals without clear doctrines of sin or redemption, without clarity about the meaning of the words or the objects and symbols in their temples, without any remaining memory of the stories of their gods. He links all his discoveries to contemporary landscapes. This combination of linguistic skill, deep cultural understanding, courage, classical scholarship, and profound love of foreign cultures was once more common. Russell is in the direct tradition of British scholars, imperial officers such as Mount Stuart Elphinstone, Macaulay, or even T.E. Lawrence. But it is now very rare. It is not an accident that Russell has now moved on from the British Diplomatic Service and Harvard University. Academics seem to be absorbed in